Now I'm ready to make a few refinements to this logo. One thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to create some negative space between the border and my bottle object. I want to point out to you that every time you create a path or type, if you're in a layer, you can see this little arrow, and if I click the arrow, I reveal that there are sublayers, and each sublayer has a component of my illustration that I created. So the first thing that I created in my illustration is my bottle shape, and so that's on the bottom in this layer stack. Okay, so think of this as sheets of paper sitting one on top of another, or a stack of pancakes or whatever. The lowest one is the one on the bottom, and the higher ones sit on top of that. So I can hide that and see that my, my bottle shape is below my rectangle shape because I created that first. So I created my bottle first, then above that is my border rectangle, which I created next, and above that is my type, which I created last. So what I would like to do is put my bottle shape above my border, my rectangular border. We can see the full names. These are just default names. I mean, I can probably, a good idea would be to double click on those default names and rename them. So here's border, and here's, we'll just call this wine bottle. And this is fine, but maybe we just want to call this type or name or company name. All right, so my wine bottle, in order to put this above my border, I'm going to select that and click and drag that. And if you see that there's a blue line between the layer called company name and border, that indicates that's where my wine bottle layer is going to be placed. So I'm just going to let go of my mouse button, and now I've reordered my layers. My border is on the bottom, wine bottle is in the middle, company name is on the top. So I'd like to, as I said, create this negative space between my bottle shape and my border. And what I'm going to do is cut my border out. So I'm going to go to the Pathfinder window. And this is just, if you notice too, as I'm talking about these windows, let's notice how on the right-hand side of your workspace there are little buttons, and if you click on these, like here's the character window, and if I click on that, it opens that window. And if I drag that away, it becomes a floating window. And if I click this little X to close it, it's not going back into my palette here. Then if I'm looking for a particular set of tools or window, I can go to my window menu and I can choose that. So if I want to get my character window back, I can choose type and character, or on the keyboard Command T. And then I can place that back inside here. I can just click and drag it and place that as a little button on the right-hand side. So let's go find the Pathfinder. So Window, Pathfinder. Okay. I want to use my shape mode called -front again. I'm going to cut a shape out of my border to make a little space between my bottle shape and my border. So in order to do that, I need to turn my stroke into a closed shape. So I'm going to click my border. So in order to use the Pathfinder tool on my border, I need to convert my border from a stroke to a path. So I have my border selected, and you can see over in my color palette, I've got my black stroke. It's a 6-point black stroke, and then I have the fill at none. So I want to reverse these. I'm going to go to the Object menu, and I'm going to choose Expand Appearance. And if you watch the palette, you'll see that my stroke is now converted to a fill. And so I can use my Pathfinder to cut out my color fill. So how am I going to create this little space or little gap here, visual gap, bit of negative space? I'm going to choose my wine bottle shape. I'm going to hit Command C, which will copy that shape, and then I'm going to hit Shift Command V, which pastes that shape, pastes the copy directly over the original. So if I click and drag, you can see I have a duplicate of my bottle shape. I'm going to click and drag that directly to the right, and I'm holding the Shift key as I do that. And what that does is that locks that to this horizontal plane. So I'm dragging just to the right slightly, and dragging it to the right, I'm overlapping my border a little bit more. So with this copy of my bottle shape selected, I'm going to hold Shift and then select my border so that I have both of these selected at the same time. And then I'm going to choose minus front, and what it does is it cut out that copy of the bottle shape from the border and leaves me with this little negative space in here. So now you can see that I've got kind of like two segments to this border. This is separate, but this is all still grouped together. So that'll move together. And what I want to do is delete this part, just the part in this corner on the left side of the bottle shape. So I'm going to right click and choose ungroup. And then if I just click in the background to deselect, and if I click on this segment of the border, it'll select only that segment, and I'm just going to hit delete and delete that part of border. Now what I'm going to do is I want my little negative gap over here on this part of the bottle. So I'm going to choose Shift Command V, and it pastes that copy that I created earlier, paste another copy directly over my original bottle shape. I'm going to click and drag while holding Shift down a little bit so that I overlap this part of my border. I'm going to hit Shift to select my border and then hit minus front. So now I have a little bit of negative space between my bottle shape and my border.